What's the worst parenting advice you've gotten from a so-called expert? The moment I questioned why our parenting group leader was recommending we lock toddlers in dark closets like her father did to her in the basement, she decided I was her personal nemesis. It started when one of the moms, Raquel, asked about her 2-year-old's bedtime meltdowns. Brenda, our so-called expert, leaned forward with this sick smile and said, "What you need to do is put him in timeout in the coat closet. It's dark and quiet, and they learn real quick that bad behavior has consequences." I felt like I was going to throw up, but whispered my concerns to the woman next to me. Brenda must have heard me because her head snapped in my direction and asked me what I had said. When I suggested there might be other approaches that don't involve locking kids in dark spaces, she launched into how she raised 3 kids using that method, and her father used to lock her in the basement when she acted up. I decided to stay quiet and started taking notes. Something about this woman felt off, and I wanted to document everything. The next week, Mackenzie asked about her 6-month-old's sleep problems. Brenda immediately recommended putting a nice soft pillow and cozy blanket in the crib so babies sleep better when they feel secure and comfortable. My blood pressure spiked, but I kept my mouth shut and wrote it down. After class, I pulled Mackenzie aside and quietly explained that her baby could suffocate if she did that. She looked horrified and thanked me. By week 3, I started reaching out to other parents privately. Turns out several people had been uncomfortable with Brenda's advice but were afraid to speak up. Jim, the quiet dad, told me he'd been Googling everything she said and found it all contradicted current safety standards. Week 6 exploded when Gwen started crying about her colicky twins. Brenda patted her hand and told her to let them cry it out, put them in their cribs and close the door, and don't go back in there until they stop, sometimes all night. She explained how she'd seen this work with countless babies, and they learn real quick that crying won't get them anywhere. I couldn't stay quiet anymore and told Gwen not to listen to her because that's not sleep training, that's abandonment. Brenda stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor and started screaming about how sick she was of me undermining everything she said with internet psychology garbage. I shot back that it's not garbage when it prevents child neglect. Brenda's voice shook with rage as she launched into how she'd been doing this for 20 years and didn't need some wannabe expert telling her anything. Both my children turned out perfectly fine using these methods, and I don't need some wannabe expert telling me. The room went dead silent. Brenda's face went white as she realized what she just said. Jim slowly raised his hand. "Didn't you say you had 3 kids?" Brenda spiraled, insisting she did have 3 kids while trying to explain that 2 of them were different somehow. When Jim pressed her about whether she had 2 kids or 3 kids, she practically screamed about how she'd raised successful children and didn't need to justify her methods to any of us. That's when Jim delivered the line that's still stuck in my head. "I'm not taking parenting advice from someone whose kids don't even exist." The silence that followed was deafening. Brenda's mouth opened and closed like a fish, her face cycling through about 5 different emotions before landing on pure panic. She kicked both of us out immediately. 20 minutes later, Jim and I were sitting in Dr. Valencia's office while Brenda paced outside like a caged animal. I handed over my documentation of her dangerous advice. Dr. Valencia's face went pale as she read through everything and immediately called the state licensing board because these practices could result in serious harm to children and potential legal liability for the program. Through the glass window, I saw Brenda's face crumble. When Dr. Valencia confronted her about the contradictions in her background, Brenda's response was explosive. "This is ridiculous. I've been doing this for 20 years. These helicopter parents today are raising a generation of weaklings because they're too afraid to discipline their kids properly." Dr. Valencia calmly informed her that her employment was terminated effective immediately and that she was banned from all community programs. Brenda stormed out, but not before turning back and yelling, "You'll see, when all these coddled kids grow up to be failures, remember that I tried to teach you real parenting." 2 weeks later, the state revoked her certification. Turns out she'd been fired from 7 different facilities across 3 states and had no children of her own.